Okay, so the NFL draft is done.
Yes.
Free agency is over.
Yep.
There's a couple stragglers on the free agent market,
Okay,
but
yeah.
not serious contributors, I don't think. So we're gonna give you updated Dynasty running back rankings on today's show. Do us a massive favor, drop a like to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to comment down below who is your biggest riser amongst the running back position in Dynasty this offseason.
That's right.
We'll obviously include rookies. And hey, do you want access to my rankings, to Badake's rankings, to Mason from Flock Fantasy, to the guys from Fantasy Stock Exchange, Fantasy Endgame? Do you want all of our rankings? One quarterback, super flex, rookie, best ball, redraft? Then go ahead and use our code LAND, LAND, when signing up on flockfantasy.com.
That's right.
/land. Not only do you get rankings, if you sign up to the Mother Flocker tier, you get a Dynasty team review from Badake and myself on a live stream. You get access to the fantasy hotline for advice. And we just released a new update where you guys can put your rankings on the website.
Community
we now
rankings.
have a community rankings tab,
Come on, baby.
as well as an option for you to submit articles, and the best of the best articles from the community will go ahead and get submitted to the rest of the website. We're excited about what's happening over there. Pinned comment, you'll see all the details. But why don't we go ahead and start? We're going to go player by player here. Okay? Player by player just allows more natural conversation instead of tier by tier. So why don't we start with Aaron Jones, Badake? Where do you have Aaron Jones ranked, if you do have Aaron Jones ranked?
I do have him ranked. Yeah, I have Aaron Jones just outside my tier, my top 24. He's my actually 25 running back, or 26, excuse me. So he's not ranked here, but he's definitely just outside of this.
Okay, so you don't have him in the top 5 tiers, just want to make sure.
Which is the top 24, by the way. I'm pretty sure you said that earlier, but we do.
Yeah, top 24. I got to be honest, I cheated a little bit, so I have a feeling like we're going to have to add Aaron Jones later on.
25?
Yeah, I have like 25 to 26 to 27 or so. Because like that fifth tier is quite large in my opinion. But okay, why don't we put Aaron Jones at the end of tier 5 and we'll see what this looks like here.
That's what he would be essentially if it was a bigger tier, right? A bigger top 28, hypothetically, right?
Agreed.
So he would definitely be there.
Austin Eckler. Where do we have Austin Eckler? I currently have him in tier 3.
Yep, I have him in tier 3 as well.
He's a difficult one because it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. In a running back who's getting up there in age, I believe he's 27 already. There was already a disagreement between the team and Austin Eckler this offseason. I think if Bijan Robinson was available, they would have drafted Bijan to replace him. That didn't happen. No contract extension on the books. Eckler wants money, and the team doesn't want to give him money. Does that sound like a similar situation we've had in LA before with Melvin Gordon? So maybe Eckler goes somewhere in free agency next year, but if he leaves this team, I don't know that he goes to a team that automatically is going to use him in the air as much as the Chargers do. So he's kind of like this one-year rental for a win now team in redraft leagues. Like you could have him in your top 3, right? In running back rankings, but
I definitely hear you.
It's difficult to project him in Dynasty right now with so much uncertainty after this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the addition of Kellen Moore over there coming from the Dallas Cowboys, I think they're also going to be a better passing offense as well, coming in, a lot more creativity. Obviously, they drafted Quentin Johnston, and I think he's also going to be a part of this offense. Not saying they're not going to run the ball, and one of the biggest things is that they weren't efficient in the red zone. And also, like every time they got into the red zone, it was either the passing touchdown. It was never going to Austin Eckler. Maybe that changes. Maybe they get a bigger back. I know Isaiah Spiller is still there, right?
Well, Eckler scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, Joshua Kelly. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he didn't score. I'm saying he wasn't. If they weren't efficient as on the run in the red zone.
Eckler was a wildly inefficient running back, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like if he leaves the Chargers and goes to a different team, he makes his money in fantasy through the air, not on the ground.
Exactly.
And, it has to be the right offense. So just some concerns. Devon A-Chain. Do you have him ranked? I do. Just want to see where your head is.
I don't have him ranked. He would be in my tier 5, though. He's my number 27 running back.
Okay, so I do have A-Chain ranked. And I think he's a very exciting name. He's not someone that I think long-term is going to be a workhorse or anything, but when you think about players like Tyler Algier, who gained a bunch of value last year, and Dameon Pierce, one was replaced in the draft, one wasn't. And I think people, as much as they think long term in Dynasty, they also think in like blocks, which is like season, off season, and I think in season A Chain's value could raise.
Right.
So I have A Chain in this tier 5. I'm gonna go ahead and advocate for him. One of my we released a video that was called Instant Opportunity Rookies, and I think he steps into an instant opportunity. Jeff Wilson's there. He hasn't been healthy for more than 50% of his games in the past 2 years or since 2020. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert is who I meant to say.
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson's also there. I mean, is Jeff Wilson really all that good at football? Hard to say. Like, he's a big body. But outside of that, I think that Devin Achane fits this offense perfectly. It's speed, speed, speed. He's going to catch a lot of balls in Miami. And I think he's worthy of being in tier 5. So I'm going to have to advocate for him there. He's kind of in the middle of my tier 5. I have him ranked as my RB24 right now.
Okay. Yeah, he's once again still outside my top 24. I think there's definitely a pathway for him. Once again, speed over there in Miami. I don't think it's a clear. Not that I don't like Devin Achane. I just don't believe there is I think he still needs to jump Jeff Wilson. Not that Jeff Wilson is nothing or a superior running back by any means, because I do think Devin is a more talented running back. But I think the way Jeff came in last year and the way they utilized him, they might still want to be doing the same thing there with all three of those guys. So let's see what type of role Devin does bring in onto this
When
offense.
I look at competitions in a running back room, I would say Miami is one of the least threatening, in my opinion. But I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
All right, Bijan Robinson. He's instantly my running back 1 in Dynasty.
Yeah.
He was before the draft. He is now.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. Let me ask you about Christian McCaffrey, because this is going to cause a lot of controversy in the chat depending on where we rank him.
Okay.
It's the age-old conversation between age versus immediate production. You don't throw away fantasy seasons. You're thinking too far into the future, but at the same time, it's a player who's had a vast injury history and is going to be 27 this year. Where do you have him ranked? Because in redraft, he's maybe the RB1. Where do you have him ranked in Dynasty?
He's actually my RB4, so he's in my tier 1 currently right now. I'm not sure where you have him. I've been looking and when I was going through my rankings here, and I don't see a scenario, and I don't think there's any competition going straight into this, especially if Brock Purdy is starting. I think he's going to lean easily on Christian McCaffrey. If Trey Lance is starting, once again, going to be easily leaning on Christian McCaffrey. And he's going to be the goal line guy. He's going to be the pass catching guy. He's a do-it-all guy. And I think, yes, the age is there, and you're right. And that's where I have him in tier 4, because I didn't go with one thing you always say. Well, I'm always, at least when you correct me, which is fine. You're like, oh, well, you got to think of just for the one season. People think in one season, like you were saying earlier, in blocks, right?
Totally.
In season, off season. And I think we really had to come to evaluation and say Chris McCaffrey is still a top running back, and he is going to be and deserves to be in tier 1, in my opinion.
Yeah. What worries me about McCaffrey, because I have him at the beginning of my tier 2, I'm going to fold and have him in tier 1, because I think there's a legit conversation. Do you have him tier 1? Do you have him tier 2? I don't care. Like, legitimately, there's a legit conversation either way. If you're rebuilding, you don't want him on your roster. If you're competing, he's the number 1 running back you probably want on your roster.
Exactly.
So I'm happy to lean either way here. But what I will say, just some concerns about McCaffrey. There's a vast injury history, and he goes to a team in San Francisco that has a vast history of injuring their running backs.
Which is fair.
Injuring their players in general. So, Badake, like, McCaffrey is he's like one injury away, that if an injury this year keeps him out, like, let's say 6 games, he's one injury away from people panicking.
And 100%. And we were saying that last year as well. He was like, if CMC can play every single game, he is a top running back, which he was. And it's either going to be he's going to stay on for the field for the whole season or miss 4 to 6 games. And that's the risk you always take by taking CMC so early, at least now in the second half of his career, right? So,
yeah. But he has a long-term commitment from the team. He's 100%. In a great offense, so you can't overthink it too much. So I'm going to leave it there and say I kind of agree with you. Okay, a guy who didn't make it into my top 24, but I wanted to talk about, see where you have him. And I had him in tier 5. He was one of those stragglers. Dalvin Cook. Where do you have Dalvin Cook?
I don't have him ranked either.
Don't have him ranked?
I don't have him ranked. He's outside my top 24, but he is right before Aaron Jones for me.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to leave Cook and Aaron Jones off this list then, if we want to just mention them as honorable mentions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are guys, no competition coming into their backfield. Dalvin Cook, right at the moment, feels like he's staying with Minnesota. They're going to continue to work and give him the opportunity there, whether it's in the air or on the ground. He's in the top, a Power 5 offense, I would say. Not Power 5. I would say their offense is, high-scoring offense. So he's going to see scoring opportunities and a fantasy opportunities as well. So Dalvin Cook is definitely a guy to be mentioned, without a doubt.
Yeah, and, Aaron Jones is going to be 29 this year. Dalvin is going to be 28. So, there are some legitimate concerns about age. It's not, we can't just ignore age entirely. But, again, if you are a team that's winning right now, you want to compete right now, then they're really great buys, depending on what people are offering. Because, again, like, Aaron Jones at 29, I've found in my win now teams, people are asking too much for him.
Yeah.
So it's like this weird give and take. Dameon Pierce, where do you have Dameon?
He's in my tier 3.
Okay.
I'm not sure where you have him. I think coming into this year, no competition coming in. They got Devin Singletary, obviously from the Buffalo Bills. He is clearly going to be leaned on, I would say, by CJ Stroud. At least that's the expectation. Every time a rookie quarterback comes in, the run game kind of picks up and, ticks up a little bit. And I think that's exactly what you might see this year. The offensive line is still a decent offensive line here. And I think Dameon Pierce, if he didn't get injured, he was a top 15 running back. And in his rookie season, a guy that was drafted in the 4th round, I think he picks up right where he left off personally in my tier 3.
Okay, I have him in tier 5, so we're gonna have to meet in the middle and pop him into tier 4.
5, okay.
I do, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair.
We'll talk about my tier 5, but I don't see a reason to put him over the other guys that I have there.
And
He's at the top of my tier 5, but we'll have a conversation about it once these.
And I think that is something
positions.
That is definitely a conversation for a lot of people. Some people have Dameon. Not saying that you have him really low, but some people have him in the top 15, and some people or top 15, top 12, whatever the case may be, and some people have him, just in the high 20s, late teens, which is fun.
He's my RB 21 at the moment.
Yeah, and it all depends on how.
I'll tell you this internal battle that I'm dealing with here in a second when we fill this out. It'll be a name we'll talk about later. Remind me to talk about Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
Breece Hall, do we need to talk about it? He's tier 1.
Yeah, tier 1, without a doubt.
Looked incredible last year before the injury. It was a clean cut to the ACL. It's not this Dobbins, Javonte injury where, there's a lot of other parts of the knee that was injured. He'll be okay. DeAndre Swift, I have in tier 4.
Yep, I have
I'm not sure where you would have him, but he's a difficult one for me because, when you think about it, I can't think of many running backs who have been traded on their rookie deal and have then been given long-term commitment from the team.
Right.
We're in a different age of running backs, so I don't want to just come out and say a blanket statement that it's not going to happen for Swift. But I can't think of a running back who was traded on their rookie deal and then was given this sort of long-term commitment from a team. I mean, let me know, guys, in the comments if I'm misremembering. But at the same time, the NFL is changing, and players like Montgomery, Sanders, they signed deals that they were happy with, but didn't murder the teams that they were on as far as the cap goes. So he could it's maybe they do re-sign Swift, or Sanders was incredible this year and they let him walk. So maybe they do the same thing with Swift.
Swift walk, maybe. Yeah.
And also Swift primarily functions through the air.
Exactly.
And this team doesn't really need him to function through the air.
Well,
so there's some concerns for me, but I have him in this tier 4. I don't know where you have him.
He's in my tier 4 as well. There are some concerns to me, and when I was doing this list, the way I'm kind of picturing this offense now, and because I was like, where is Swift going to go? Penny probably does take the first and second down work, and Swift is a third down guy, right? Like, if anything, he's beating Kenneth, taking over.
It's probably not Swift season to the point where like he is dominating 20 touches a game.
Exactly.
I mean, if you look historically, he's started less than 30% of his games, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's what
very few games he's had over 15 touches.
It's not necessarily, but maybe he slots himself into the third down role, the pass catching role. Maybe he is the Tony Pollard for this Eagles team, right? And he's going to be the guy that they target. Like, For example, I'm more concerned now about Kenneth Gainwell, and I'm not saying that he was a big threat anyway, right, or a massive fantasy relevant player. But if they didn't get DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell was going to take a big step. But now Gainwell gets bumped back into that third spot. So right now, Swift for me is in that tier 4. But I see Penny 1-2 punch, and then or first and second down, and then DeAndre Swift coming in as a third down. We got a third and long right now.
Yeah, and will he stay healthy, right?
Biggest thing.
Okay, David Montgomery. Where do you have David Montgomery ranked?
I don't have Monty ranked.
Okay, he is one of those guys. He's my RB 25.
Okay, he's outside.
Currently have him right after that top 24, right after Devin A-Chain. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be involved heavily, but David Montgomery isn't just going away. I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Montgomery's not going away. And on the goal line, you can make a case that maybe Montgomery is going to vulture a lot of touchdowns, signs a 3-year deal on a team that is very efficient on the ground. Is his upside what it was before the draft? Clearly, nowhere near that.
Right.
But I still think he's worthy of being here in this tier 5, even if it's not top 24.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's not that, once again, it's not that I don't like Monty. So if you see a guy that's not in a tier, and I say I don't have him ranked, not because we don't like him, it's just because we're doing a top 24. So he's definitely just outside my top 24. A guy that I see workload coming to. I think he is the Jamal Williams to this offense. And he's going to begin, like you said, goal line touches. So let's see how he can fit into this top 24 in the season, right at the end of the season.
All right. Where do you have Jahmyr Gibbs, his teammate?
Jahmyr Gibbs, I have him in tier 2.
Okay, I have him in tier 1.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The way I have this broken down is because I do believe Jahmyr Gibbs is up there, right? It's not that he can't be in tier 1. It's just more that I think, once again, now the upside is capped. And that's why I feel like my tier 1 people, there's no capped upside by any means. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he will get the opportunities in the air. He will get he will get the opportunity in the air, which is as important, but there's no cap still. And the cap is David Montgomery, the guy who we just spoke about. And if he wasn't there, he would 100% be in the tier 1. And I can definitely see people advocating for him to be in tier 1. But I guess that's how I ranked in my mind. Running backs at tier 1, no capped upside, complete workload on the ground, in the air, all them. That's where I have people in my tier 1. So
okay. Well, I met you in the middle of having McCaffrey in tier 1.
Yeah,
so
we can
I
put
would
him
just
up.
ask that we could have Gibbs there. I currently have Gibbs ranked ahead of McCaffrey. If you think about it, I think the Lions see a Christian McCaffrey type player. McCaffrey's not 215. McCaffrey's not this huge, massive running back. He's a better pure runner than Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jahmyr Gibbs was picked with the 12th overall pick. Again, historically, if you look at every starting running back in the NFL today, only 2 have been drafted higher, right? You've got Saquon Barkley. You've got Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
Those are the 2. And now you can say Bijan, right? But he's on a start. Like, he hasn't started yet. But that kind of commitment from the team says so much. And in PPR formats, I think Gibbs is going to absolutely smash. And like, I'll go out and say it. I think he is a better he's a better pass catching prospect than DeAndre Swift was. He is a better pass catching prospect than Swift was. I'm excited to see how they use him. I currently am trying to figure out if he's my RB 3 or 4 in Dynasty. Like, outside of that, I think he should be ranked, ahead of everyone else. So
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And
I'll go ahead and advocate for him here in tier 1.
I hear you, and it's not that I don't think he deserves that. I think it's tough. It's really tough because I think there's no clear pathway to all workload, and I think that's what we were hoping for coming in. At least for me, in my expectation that he was going to be first, second, and the pass catching guy. And the fact that it feels like he's only going to be the pass catching guy really, not that it bothers me. It's just more like I wish they were just giving him fully, give him the CMC role, the full thing, right? Once again, my tier 1 guys, no capped in production, and Jahmyr Gibbs is in my tier 2, but I'm happy to have him in tier 1.
I hear you on that, but I mean, I would disagree a little bit. I didn't expect him to be a 3-down workhorse necessarily.
I
Like
guess like
that's in
every
the range
team.
of outcomes, but I think
Yeah.
most people were relatively concerned about that. I mean, if you think about Christian McCaffrey when he joined the Panthers, what was that back in 2017? Well, Jonathan Stewart was there. A lot of people would have been saying Jonathan Stewart is an issue, right?
Yeah.
Well,
for sure.
long term, McCaffrey was the one that you bet on.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely hear you. McCaffrey put up some insane numbers as a rookie. I mean, he had, I think, like 80 receptions in his rookie season. Jonathan Stewart had more carries, but he was still, after that year, crowned like the RB1. Now, again, it's not a perfect comparison. I'm just saying it's within the realm of possibilities that Jahmyr Gibbs, given this draft capital, given this commitment, could have a similar career arc. And, I know people would have been worried about Jonathan Stewart when Christian McCaffrey was drafted.
I guess, Yeah, I guess just to rebuttal that one more time, it's more like, okay, well, Gibbs is going into a running back that is committed for 3 years. I don't know where I can't remember where Jonathan Stewart was in his career.
Jonathan Stewart was like a dominant, like he was a
at
top
the time.
15. I think I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure Jonathan Stewart was probably considered a better talent at the time than David Montgomery is
today.
And
then, Christian McCaffrey at that time was like, okay, you're getting this guy, a smaller running back that's not an do-it-all guy like Jonathan Stewart was.
McCaffrey's 205. He's not 215.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that. But, hey, let's see where Jahmyr Gibbs ends up. I think he's definitely going to be a top 10, top 8 running back in Dynasty without a doubt.
Yeah, he's my RB3 right now. What is he for you?
For me,
and I think like 3 and 4 is interchangeable, so he could be 4.
Yeah, he's my RB5 right now. So I'm still trying to push him past CMC, and maybe that's something I need to change, right? I know CMC is the older guy and Gibbs is the long-term one, so
well, one is guaranteed, one we're projecting, so I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry.
Tier 4 for me at the moment. I don't know.
Okay, I was wondering if you would even have him ranked. I have him in tier 5.
Okay.
Okay, so talk through me tier 4 then, because I can't get on board tier 4, but I'm listening.
For sure, tier 4. I mean, Derrick Henry every single year. I guess kind of like CMC every single year. When's the fall off? When's the fall off? And the fall off still hasn't happened, right? I mean, this past year, Derrick Henry RB4 was still getting the 300 plus attempts on the ground. This offense is still gonna be the same. Now, does the offensive line get better? Probably not, right? They lose Taylor Lewan, if I'm not mistaken, and they do draft
Peter.
And they do draft Peter Skoronski here, which is kind of a good fill-in. So it doesn't necessarily, it kind of evens out where I believe you shouldn't be drafting him as high because he's 29 years old. But once again, the attempts are still there. RB4 this past year. I mean, we all know how Derrick Henry goes in the second half of the season when it gets cold. And I think, once again, it may not be sexy in our eyes when we're drafting, but I think he's worth being in the top 24 here. So he is in my tier 4.
It's tough because, I mean, when the wheels fall off, they fall off, and
for
he's
sure.
dead.
And it's going to be done.
So where do you have him ranked? He's your RB what right now?
I have to count here. I don't have my actual list up for.
So he's my RB23. So I do have him in this tier 5. I wanted to put respect on his name at least.
He's my RB21 right now.
Okay. So he's my RB23. He's your 21.
Mm-hmm.
Look, here's the difficult part with Henry. Like I said, when he falls off and he's worth nothing.
Yeah.
Like that will happen. And there is no long-term contract in place for Derrick Henry. This is the last year of his deal.
For sure.
And this could be the year, if he gets injured or if he falls off, that he is done. Because there's no long-term commitment from the team. The team clearly is in a place where they, like their identity, they're not going to win a Super Bowl this way. They need change. That's why Levis is there.
And another,
so
just
I
another
struggle
thing.
to put him tier 4 personally.
Just another thing.
I wanted to put some respect on him. I just don't think he should be in tier 4 with those other players.
Who else did they bring in? Right? I mean, Robert Woods is no longer there. Tajay Spears is there. And on this offense as a whole, who else do they bring in outside of Tajay? There's no wide receivers to really help move the chain outside of Treylon. Tajay Spears is the guy that they bring in. So I just feel like it's going to be Treylon Burks, Derrick Henry. Obviously, Chick is there as well. If they would have brought in another wide receiver, Jordan Addison or whatever the case may be, then maybe you say, okay, we can see the attempts kind of pulling back a little bit. But I don't see
Okay.
that happening here with Derrick Henry, especially if we're projecting Will Levis to get on the field in the second half of the season. That can give more
Yeah,
opportunity for Derrick, right? So
maybe or
or
less
less.
because Will Levis is
Hmm.
maybe going to be a bit more of a threat on the ground.
Yeah.
Look, I just think Henry's a really tough bet in Dynasty, a really tough bet. But I'll let you have him in there in tier 4. I don't know if I can get behind it, but I'll let you have him
Hmm.
there. Isaiah Pacheco, where do you have Isaiah Pacheco
He's my
ranked?
tier 5.
Okay, yeah. So he's someone who didn't make my top 24, but I
Hmm.
still had him in that tier 5 as one of those stragglers.
Yeah, he's my RB 25 here. So that was a
Okay.
guy I kind of put as a little extra. Um, yeah.
Good situation, good run to end the year. I mean, we both thought that they would draft the running back. They
Gosh.
didn't.
I mean,
But they did bring back McKinnon. I think
mhm.
McKinnon was really good in the role that he was given. So let's see what will happen. I think he's still like it's still a threat each year that he's replaced, and that's concerning. But yeah,
Absolutely.
he definitely was a big winner this offseason.
Absolutely.
Javonte Williams. I have Javonte Williams in tier 4.
Yes, I have him in tier 4 as well.
So Samaje Perine, I think, is a value right now in Dynasty, but again, another team that didn't draft the running back.
Yeah, and it's
So
very interesting, which kind
it's
of
kind of like everything points to, hey, Javante, when you're ready, step in and we're gonna
exactly
let you lead the way.
exactly, which makes me believe that they're either not going to run the ball as much, and it's going to be a high passing offense, or Javonte Williams is going to be ready sooner than we expect, and we
Yeah,
might see him. Let's just say week 3, Samaje P. Ryan can handle the workload for 3 games. If I'm not mistaken, Mike Boone is still there. I don't know the depth chart for the Broncos right now, but they can definitely get another back here that can help him out for the
yeah.
next 3 weeks.
Perine, I just released a video yesterday about Samaje Perine as a buy,
Hmm.
and I just wanted to step in real quick because there was this quote from George Patton. He said that he believes Samaje Perine can be a first, second, third down back.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and of course, like who knows, like GMs, what they say and how a running back is used is not always aligned. But I think they believe he can be the fill-in until Javante's ready, and then he'll probably play the same role he played in
In
Cincinnati
Cincinnati with
as that pass catcher, third
yeah,
down.
makes sense.
Again, I think Javante's perfectly set up. He's only 23 years old. He's a young back. So, okay, Kenneth Walker. This will get really juicy depending on where you have him and where I have him. I have him in tier 3.
You have him in tier 3. I have him in. He is my last player in tier 2. Um,
Oh
it's
gosh.
tough. It's difficult right now, right? I mean, I struggle with right now. This is the people that I'm struggling with to put over him, just purely based off of the commitment from the team. Tony Paul, I guess in the long term commitment. Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, right?
Okay,
Like,
well, let's talk about those players because I have Tony Pollard ranked ahead of him right now in my
okay, and I think
rankings.
that is the difference. So for
And I have
me,
Ramondre in the same tier as Ken Walker.
so I have Tony and Ramondre in the same tier, which is in tier 3, and Kenneth Walker, my last RB, in my tier 2. The reason why I can't put Kenneth Walker in the same tier as Tony and Ramondre is just once again the commitment from the team, a second round draft pick, a guy that we've seen be a top 8 running back, and just like with Tony and Ramondre in different ways. But Kenneth Walker at that time, obviously upside wasn't capped. But now, what does that look like with Zach Charbonnet? It's a little bit more shaky, but I do believe this is going to be a 50-50 workload. And in the long haul,
So I hear you. Let me just jump in real quick.
mhm,
Are you worried about Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs right now?
no.
Are you giving that, like specifically with Tony Pollard, right? Are you
Hmm.
discounting Saquon and Josh Jacobs?
Am I?
Just yes or no.
No.
So that's where I'm coming from. It's like I hear you, but this team is spending like what $18 million on Tony Pollard this year,
Hmm.
and I think there's this common misconception with Pollard that like he's just this spell back. He's like this
Right.
fun little smaller running back. He is 212 pounds at 6 foot. Tony Pollard is not a small back. He can handle a full workload, and I think they were wanting to see that last year, and they saw that. They continually gave him more and more touches. So I hear you, but at the same time, I'm like, I mean, they're gonna pay my guy $18 million this year, if I'm not mistaken, to be their running back one. Same things happening with Jacobs. Same things happening with Saquon. And if you look at the back half of the season last year, Tony Pollard was the RB2 in fantasy. second half of the season.
I hear you, and I think
I get it, but like I don't know, man.
Once
I think
again-
Tony's undervalued right now.
once again, he may be undervalued, but this is where, and we spoke about it earlier. This is where you think of long-term commitment and what this team is going to be. So like, yeah, I would personally say maybe this year, can Tony Pollard finish ahead of Kenneth Walker? Absolutely. But in the long haul, as a dynasty owner, as a fantasy owner, when I think of workload, I think of production, when I think of commitment from the team, Kenneth Walker is a guy I want to lean on, because next year, when the best running back comes out, just like we were thinking of Bijan going to the Cowboys this year, or Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Cowboys, Tony Pollard dies. And not that Kenneth Walker is dead. It's just the upside is capped. But we can't envision that workload, which is the problem.
Rebuttal, Ken Walker's already capped. And next year, he will be capped. So as much as we're talking about next year, Ken Walker has a running back drafted in the same round in his own backfield that he's competing for the starting job with.
And I completely agree. I'm not disagreeing.
So like,
it's more like
Tony Pollard could get a running mate next year. Well, Ken Walker has a running mate for the next 4 years at minimum.
For
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I hear you. So I'm not saying I want to advocate for Kenneth Walker. I think it's a good conversation, and I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with. I would even say the community has him significantly lower than where we have him, I would say.
Where do you have him ranked? I have him ranked as my RB10.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's my RB10.
Okay, so why don't we just meet in the middle, and I'll give you Derrick Henry in tier 4, and you give me Kenneth Walker in tier 3.
Sure. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think I think Pollard is really, really underrated right now. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, no disrespect, but Deuce Vaughn is who we're worried about. Ronald Jones couldn't get on the field for Kansas City. He's a good running back. That's not fair. Okay, J.K. Dobbins, I have him in the same tier as Javonte Williams. I think he's set to smash this year. I don't know about you.
I have him in my tier 3.
Okay.
I just feel more comfortable a top guy getting the workload with one leg in the second half of the season. Now that he's coming back a year later, a year removed from that injury with Lamar Jackson with a new offense. I think we're going to see him kind of come back to where he was and kind of picked off where he left off, whether it was last year or before his injury, where we were kind of projecting him to be this top 12 running back. Yeah. So I have him in tier 3 for me.
I'm all aboard Dobbins this year. I hear you. But I think the issue with Dobbins is he's never going to be a 50, 60, 70 reception a year type of player. That just doesn't happen in Baltimore's offense. If you look at all the other running backs in this tier 3, Pollard could get a ton of receptions. Maybe not Walker, but Eckler, Ramondre, all these guys are on track to be top 5, 10 in receptions. I don't think that's within the realm of possibility for J.K. Dobbins. I think his fantasy, stardom is going to come on the ground, especially now that you add Odell, you add Zay Flowers. So I personally think he's much more in the Damian Pierce, Javonte Williams range. But I'm gonna give you him there in tier 3, because I do think like he was super efficient last year when he got his knee cleaned up.
Yeah, he came back and he was a guy. So
I still think he has a limited ceiling in that offense. I don't think he's ever going to be some sort of like, oh, this dude caught 60 balls this year and also rushed for 10 touchdowns. But I'll be happy to concede. I just think he fits much more in the range. Like, like thinking about these tiers and drafting, if Pollard and Walker and Ramondre are on the board, am I ever considering Dobbins over them? No. You know what I mean? Like he's not someone I would draft over those players.
I think it depends on and he is, to be fair, he is my last running back on this tier. He is he's my RB, what's that, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So he's my RB 16 in this lineup here. So you're right. I'm not considering him over any of those guys. But I do believe, once again, the way he kind of left off last year, the way he came back, once again, another year removed. And I think that really helps. And we've seen that in injury history when it comes down to all these other players, which I feel really confident in.
Well, if you're not considering him over any of the players in that tier, I think that indicates that he probably should be tier 4. If you think about it in that way, how we actually use the tiers when we're drafting.
For sure. And I think that for me, I just feel he will be my last person to where I would be like, okay, let me go look at somebody else until I go into my next tier 4, because I would feel really comfortable if all these running backs off the board, J.K. Dobbins is there, and he is my guy because of...
Okay, my last attempt here, just to like kind of see if you're gonna come with me to tier 4. If not, it's fine. But so like if J.K. Dobbins, to me, that what this indicates is you would take Dobbins like a round or two earlier than Javonte Williams. I would not do that. Considering how I use my tiers,
Yeah,
I would not take J.K. Dobbins a round or two earlier than Javonte Williams. I would take them in the same range.
I would take him. I mean, maybe 2 rounds is a bit stretched, but 1 round is for me 100%.
Okay.
I definitely agree with you there. I'm definitely taking him a round earlier than Javonte, without a doubt.
Okay, Joe Mixon. One, I have him in tier 4. A player that you and I have said all offseason, if he gets through the draft, he's one of the biggest winners. People were selling like the 210, the 29, the 28.
Whoever got him,
I think he's a big winner. I have him in tier
Kudos.
4. Just for the sake of time, do you also have him here?
Yeah, I have him in tier 4 as well.
Jonathan Taylor, I have in tier 1.
Yep, he's up there for me.
I don't have AJ Dillon ranked.
I don't have
now
him
that
ranked
I'm looking
either.
at him.
I don't have him ranked. So
Josh Jacobs, I have in this tier 2.
yep, tier 2. First guy in tier 2.
A player led the league in rushing last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now the Raiders are looking at a long-term contract potentially, but the Raiders got Jimmy G. Devontae Adams is going to be a good team. Jacobs is going to be crucial to that offense.
Yeah, agreed.
And he's still 25, going to be 26 soon. Miles Sanders, I have in this tier 4, right around DeAndre Swift. I don't know about you.
I have him in tier 4 as well. He's ahead of DeAndre Swift for me.
Yeah, 4-year commitment from the team, rookie quarterback. If you make the case for Dameon Pierce, rookie quarterback, they're going to run the ball a lot. Same thing for Miles Sanders here. I just think Miles Sanders is a better talent. Najee Harris, I would say, is an underrated asset right now in Dynasty. I have him right beside Ken Walker. I don't know who I want, Najee Harris or Ken Walker, but keep in mind, Najee Harris had a foot injury all last year. I think we're going to see a healthy Najee Harris again in 2023.
Yeah, and they get a better offensive lineman in Broderick Jones, and I think that is a really good commitment. I actually have him in tier 2 personally.
You have him in tier 2?
I do have him in tier 2.
Okay.
I'm taking Najee Harris over Tony Kenneth Walker, and I'm assuming, and I guess those 2 players in your tier 3 at the moment from where I'm seeing.
I would take. I said this before the NFL draft. If the Cowboys don't draft a serious threat to Tony Pollard, I'm taking Tony Pollard over Najee Harris.
Sure.
Najee Harris isn't like years younger than Tony Pollard.
No,
I think Tony Pollard's a better fantasy running back. So yeah, I'll meet you with Dobbins in this tier, but I'll ask you to meet me with keeping Najee here in this tier.
Sure.
Nick Chubb. Where do you have him?
I have him in tier 3.
Same. So that tier 3 is getting big. How about Rachaad White? I mean, Nick Chubb is like one of the best pure runners in the NFL, by the way. They didn't add anyone.
Exactly.
Jerome Ford will play a role. He's going to be just fine.
Come on, baby.
A very good offense.
Jerome Ford.
Rachaad White. What
He's
do you have
my tier
Rachaad
5.
Okay.
I'm not sure. He's
my
my first.
Get disrespectful at some point.
My first running back. My first running back in my tier 5. So it is respect. No running back coming in to really compete with him. Obviously, people are really leaning on Sean Tucker right now. But other than that, he looks like he's going to be the first, second, and third down guy in this offense to a really bad offense that may be, resulting in passing the ball a little bit more. So
yeah, and they could be in scenarios where they're down late in games, and let's dump the ball off to Rachaad White.
For sure.
For the sake of time, I'm happy to leave him there, but I still think that Dameon Pierce and Rachaad White should be in the same tier. To me, I don't see why they're in different tiers. We've had this conversation before. I'll just quickly say my piece. Rachaad White was drafted earlier than Dameon Pierce. Both have no competition in their backfield. Both are going to be on relatively bad offenses, even though CJ Stroud is there. He's still a rookie. I think they should be in the same tier, but for the sake of time, we'll move on and keep Dameon in tier 4. Sure. Saquon Barkley, I also have with Josh Jacobs in tier 2.
Tier 2, absolutely.
Travis Etienne, I have the top of my tier 2.
Tier 2, yep. I'm right there with you.
He could be tier 1. Tank Bigsby doesn't worry me, a ton, but I think Tank Bigsby will have a role.
Yeah,
and
I think
at
that's
minimum,
the thing.
you have to consider that.
He will have a role. I think he's going to take, the way I'm projecting right now, he will take goal line opportunities from Etienne. Yeah. I mean, we saw Trevor Lawrence take some opportunity last year on the goal line. Yeah. So I think Tank is going to be the guy.
Okay, Zach Charbonnet, I have at the beginning of my tier 5.
Another guy I don't have.
See, I don't know where do you rank Charbonnet versus Ken Walker? Because you actually don't know who's going to be the starter day one. Pete Carroll doesn't know who's going to be the starter day one. He's literally come out and said they're going to battle it out in camp. So where the hell do you rank these two guys?
I just don't see Charbonnet coming in with what Kenneth Walker did this past year and say, you know what, yeah, Charby, you won the job. I don't see that happening. I think that's just a little bit of smoke, personally. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be playing a role. What that role is...
Walker was in the same position last year.
Who? Sorry?
Because he was drafted in the second round.
Who was this?
Ken Walker was in the same position last year.
Yeah, and he was drafted 100%, but he was the healthier back according... Well, he struggled with injury in the first half.
I'm going to say, like, this dude had a groin injury a lot. But
I don't see him winning the job. Personally, I see him taking opportunity, 50%, 40%. I don't have him ranked in the top 24 personally. Not that.
Oh, wow.
It's not that I don't view him being there.
I can't go that drastic. I mean, again, Charbonnet is a better prospect than Dameon Pierce. He's a better prospect than Rashad White, than Devin A. Chain.
I agree, but
he's probably a better overall prospect than like DeAndre Swift was, than Ramondre Stevenson. He was still picked in day 2, so he has better draft capital than Stevenson. Then same as Javonte, same as Miles. You know, better than Joe, better than Damian, better than Rashad, better than A. Chain. I mean,
I hear you.
Charbonnet, to me, is not a inferior prospect to Kenneth Walker.
When I think of workload and the fantasy perspective and where he can be, I don't see him breaking. Not that I don't see him breaking into the top 24. I think it's going to be in a pathway that is not going to be efficient. And just like we talk about, Jamal Williams was a top guy last year, but we always come back to he wasn't efficient in a fantasy like 1 yard runs. When I say efficient, I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying like the fantasy community, like people.
No,
like,
but I'm asking why. Why do you feel that way about Charbonnet? Why isn't he going to be an efficient runner?
And I think it's because Kenneth Walker is there, and maybe the word efficient. Maybe the word efficient is not the right word. Maybe the word efficient is not the right word.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I think it's more of like a consistent guy week in and week out, right? I feel like Jamal, and I think we keep leaning, at least I keep leaning back onto this. When I think of Zach Charbonnet, he's going to be a Jamal Williams guy, being either a goal line guy or the pass catching guy, which we saw that past year.
Jamal Williams wasn't really involved in the passing game. I think Charbonnet is going to be involved in the passing game.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think you can rank Ken Walker as a top 10 dynasty running back and then not have Zach Charbonnet in your top 24. Like,
I mean,
the only reason you're putting Walker there ahead of all these other guys is because he has been in the NFL for a year.
Yeah, and I think we do that often, and I think that's exactly.
There's no other reason to just bet on Ken Walker over Charbonnet in my mind.
I hear you. On
Other
that.
than you've seen it,
I don't have an argument because you're right. My argument is I've seen it, and we saw what Ken Walker was, and he was a top 8 running back at one point of the season, and now with Zach Charbonnet, I don't think and same thing with Kenneth Walker. Does Kenneth Walker go back up to the top 8? Probably not. But Zach Charbonnet is not going to get into the top 15, in my opinion, right now.
That's what I'm saying. Neither of them have top 10 opportunity. Like, Charbonnet will not be irrelevant. There's not a scenario in which Charbonnet is irrelevant.
Yeah, and I completely agree.
So then we can't have Ken Walker that high. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I just feel more comfortable.
The gap between Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet should not be this drastic, in my opinion.
I guess when I'm thinking about it, I just feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable drafting, Rashad White. I feel more comfortable drafting, Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon.
But I think what's unfortunate is a lot of people are just throwing out their film evaluation, analyzing his analytics for Charbonnet. They're just throwing that out because Ken Walker's there. As if we didn't all have Charbonnet ranked as a similar prospect to Kenneth Walker coming in.
And you're right. And I think it's because you throw it out because you actually have no idea what's going to happen in this offense. Like
Same thing with Kenneth Walker last year, but we still saw them as similar prospects.
Kenneth Walker didn't have, at least in my opinion, didn't have the competition. I didn't see Rashad Penny as a competition. I thought he was going to beat him out day one.
Well, before Penny was injured, Penny was the guy.
And before Kenneth Walker was injured, I think Kenneth Walker was the guy. That's why he missed the first half of the season.
I mean, you're assuming that, but that's not what happened. That didn't actually happen. It's just an assumption that you feel. Well,
he missed the first 2 games.
Right, but you're saying Ken Walker was the guy. Well, no, Penny was extremely efficient. We just didn't get to see Ken Walker healthy to start the year. So you don't actually know the answer to that.
Sure.
Look, I think it's just, to me, I think there's no way Walker and Charbonnet should be tiers and tiers and tiers apart. And I think a lot of people who are taking Kenneth Walker in the 3rd round of startup drafts while Charbonnet is going in the 8th are going to really regret doing it, because Kenneth Walker isn't going away. Charbonnet isn't going away. But if the team viewed Kenneth Walker as a top 10 running back, a guy that that's a workhorse, they wouldn't have drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round. They wouldn't have done that.
And
so,
that's a massive concern for both.
So let's leave it there. The last person I want to talk about is Kendre Miller, who I have at the end of this tier 5, but I think he could take that role in New Orleans. But for the sake of time, unless you have anyone else, I'm at least content with the conversations we've had.
Yeah. I don't have Kendre Miller ranked. I think I always go back to this. Alvin Kamara needs to get suspended. Now, if he's suspended, we can have a new conversation. But at the moment, this feels like nothing is going to be resolved there. Maybe it's the offseason. Maybe as we get closer to the season. Right now, Alvin Kamara is the starting running back in this backfield until said otherwise.
He will be suspended. It will happen.
Yeah. And I think another thing is how long is that suspension? Is it a 2
6
game?
games.
Is
At
it a
minimum.
4 game? 6
According to the NFLPA, it's a minimum 6 game suspension.
Sure.
For what he did.
Let's see what happens. And I think once those 6 games are done, Kenneth Walker will be a good fantasy option in the first half of the season. Kendre Miller, excuse me, will be a good fantasy option in the first half of the season, but then he jumps right back down after Alvin Kamara probably comes back, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I don't have the last person I have as a running back here is James Cook. He's my RB 23.
Okay. Sure. I'm not gonna stop you from doing that. He's in my tier 6, but like if you want to shout him out.
Yeah, he is. He's the guy I see coming in. They didn't really bring anyone else. Obviously, Damian Harris is there, but they didn't bring anyone else to really compete. Damian Harris is not known for catching passes, and James Cook is, and he's definitely going to be getting the workload in the air.
Sure.
And which we're talking about, all these running backs that are pass catching guys that are getting opportunities. I think James Cook is going to be a guy there in a high powered pass catching offense which they didn't bring. Well, they have Dulce Kincaid now actually, so they brought in some new help, and that's going to help James Cook. I would say in the flat. So. I like James.
That is probably it for today. I really want to hear people's opinions on Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I'm curious where people think they should be ranked and how far apart they should be ranked.
Mind you, he is my RB, Zach Charbonnet, because I never said that. Sorry to interrupt. Kenneth Walker, my RB 10. Zach Charbonnet, my RB 27. So
that's just no.
I mean, maybe it's too much for some people. Once again, not saying that he's not ranked within my ranking, so don't say it. Well, you're not saying that, but don't take that way.
Yeah.
But I hear you.
I can't get behind it. I'm sorry, but let's see what the people say. Let's see what the people say. I'm curious. I'm very curious to hear response. But that is it. I thought about more points for Zach Charbonnet, but I was like, in the video. That's it, guys. Drop a like to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content, and we'll see you in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.